Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so today we're going to continue working on function notation, but we're going to expand that knowledge into graphs and tables. So we're going to look at different representations of a function and be able to still evaluate those functions. So below is this curve, this continuous graph represents m of x. That's our function. So that means I need to change these to m, not k. Okay, so we want to answer the questions m of 4. So what that means is if I plug in 4 into my function, if I plug that in as my input, what am I going to get out as my output? Well, remember that these are coordinate points. So you're basically saying if you plug in 4, what's going to be your output? Well, on my y-axis, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I plug in 4, I get out 5. That's that point right there. All right. And then the next one's saying m of -1. So if I plug in -1, I'm going to get out 2. Because -1, 2 is a point that's on this continuous graph. Now this next part is a little bit trickier because it's saying find all x's. So you're finding your inputs. If you know that m of x equals -1. So that -1, that's actually going to be the output. So let's look at -1 on the output. So what I like to do at this point is draw like a dotted line through my graph at that output of -1. And I want to see where does it hit the graph. Well, it hits the graph right there and right there. So find all the x's that give you an output of -1. Well, the first x value is going to be right there, which is -2. And the second x value is going to be right there, which is -4. Okay, so this means that f of -2 equals -1. And f of -4 equals -1. Those are 2 points, 2 inputs that give you the same output of -1. Okay, so here is a discrete graph this time. It's just a bunch of points. Go ahead and work through these. There are your answers for these where we evaluated this function k of x. Make sure you jot down any questions you might have if your answers disagree. Let's go on to the next way that we can use our function notation and evaluate functions from a table this time. So from a table, this table represents h of x. So this top row is our input. This bottom row is our output. So h of 6, if I plug in 6, what do I get out? I'm going to get out -3. Okay. The next one says h of -11. If I plug in -11, what do I get out? I get out -1. And here is where it gets a little tricky because we don't know our input here. Find the x if h of x equals -2. So I'm going to look at this row of h of x and figure out where does h of x equal -2? Well, it equals -2 right here. What did you have to plug in order to get -2? You plug in -4. So the x value there is going to be -4 because h of -4 equals -2. All right, so here is a table for you to try. So there's your first column is x, your second column is d of x. Try that out. All right, so there are your answers for evaluating this function using the table. Now I was thinking about it, I need to go back a couple slides and fix down here. You'll see that I said f of 1. Well, that's not this function. Our function is k of x. So this would be k of 1 equals 5. And then on this one, our function was m of x. So these shouldn't be f's. They should say m of negative 2 equals negative 1, and m of negative 4 equals negative 1. So just a silly mistake that I made. Other than that, that is evaluating functions based off a graph or a table. If you have any questions, make sure you jot it down. But other than that, keep practicing.